Hi everyone, this is Gaia from Astrology.com, and I'm the resident Horary Astrologer here at Guiding Star. I offer Horary question consultations, which is to say that basically I work with a set of techniques that allow me to give precise answers to narrowed questions. So precise answers to precise, well-thought, relevant questions. It could be about pregnancy, could be about job, about buying a property, could be about money. It could be about a trial, some kind of legal trial. It could be even about health as well, about finding a lost object. There are many different possibilities with Horary. The requirements are that the question must be something that is relevant to you and for you at this point in time, at this moment, something you are very invested with, and also something that concerns you either directly or concerns someone which is someone who is in your close sphere. So a parent, a sibling, a friend, a child. With this being said, I just want to add that as a Horary Astrologer, I do deliver your consultation within 2-3 days, because as Horary Astrologers, oftentimes we are asked to give answers pretty quickly to very urgent matters. So it's not just me, but all good Horary Astrologers, they always give priority to the Horary questions, because that's how it works. So in 2-3 days, we should, as Horary Astrologers, be able to answer those questions, because otherwise the scope of Horary, the aim of Horary is partially not accomplished, not met. But enough about the life of a Horary Astrologer. Let's talk about today's topic, which is moon combust, or if you want to use other words, moon in conjunction with the sun. So for a very detailed description of combustion, go back to my previous chat or presentation where I introduced the topic and I went in great detail. I talked for an hour about combustion, which is a long time to talk about combustion. So I'm not gonna go back to the concepts that I introduced in my last talk. However, you will be able to gather information on combustion nonetheless, because I will talk about it in combination with the moon. So when is the moon combust? When, of course, she is within 8 degrees and 30 minutes, either ahead of the sun or before the sun. So say the moon is at 4, sun is at 10, moon is combust, or sun is at 15, the moon is at 21, the moon is combust. So what does it mean to have the moon combust? Well, first of all, let's talk about, let's get out of the combustion for a second. Let's talk about the sun as our consciousness, the sun as our soul, and the sun as a significator of our path in life. Well, if in your birth chart you have the moon in conjunction with the sun, the moon becomes an integral part of your life journey, an integral part of your life path. So one of the lessons you're here to learn, one of the reasons that one of the life topics will be to learn to deal with emotions and to learn to get to know your moon. So there's no way out. If you've got this conjunction in your birth chart, the moon becomes part of your life path, of your soul mission in this lifetime. So let's talk about what it means when the moon is combust. Well, as I said in my previous talk, when a planet is combust, the planet cannot see, but also cannot be seen. So this means that the native may have a hard time identifying, relating, and connecting with their emotions and feelings. And it can be hard for them to recognize and acknowledge that they are feeling something in a specific circumstance, it could be also very hard for other people to connect with the native, because, as I said, you can't see this planet, meaning that you, as the native with the combustion, will have a hard time connecting and identifying and labeling what you're feeling, but also people around you will have a hard time seeing your emotions, connecting to you on an emotional level. They will have a hard time getting to know you and getting to see how you are on the inside, because it's all hidden, it's all kept inside. And this is the first point. As I said in my previous talk, a planet combust is an untapped potential. It's something that you have, but you haven't developed yet. You haven't gotten to know it. And so when the moon is combust, what you need to get to know, what you need to work with, what you need to get acquainted with and develop is your emotional responses, is your instinct, is your intuition. It's also the ability to change and adapt, and the quality of flexibility, because those are all the qualities that the moon embodies and represents. So this is an untapped potential in a sense, because again, you don't even know that you have those abilities or those qualities within you. Even if the moon is exalted or in rulership, actually, when the moon is in great dignity and it's combust, it's like you have this huge untapped potential that you have to discover. If the moon is not in great dignity, the potential is still there, but of course it's less of a huge deal. But again, if the moon is in dignity, well, this potential is so big, but at the same time so underrated that you have to work with it. You have to consciously stop and allow your instinct, allow your intuition to surface, because the sun itself does not allow this to happen. So to work with your intuitions, to work with your instincts, to work with your inner voice, you need time to stop, and you need a space for this to unravel. And the sun does not allow this, because the sun always wants attention pointed to it. The sun grabs the attention. The sun is an attention grabber. And so what happens is that basically you don't have the time, or you don't have the space to work with your emotions, because every time even you try, something related to the sun comes up. It could be related to the sun ruled houses. Most of the time it is related to the sun's ruled houses. So if the sun rules the fifth house, for example, maybe you have a hard time showing vulnerability and expressing your emotions because of your children, maybe because you want to show them a very reliable, collected, well put together person as a parental figure, and this does not allow you do not allow yourself to express emotions, just because you are in this position of basically showing them. And you feel this because of the sun. The sun always takes priority. The sun always overrules something which is combusting it. So you feel that it's more important to be a well put together parent rather than allowing your emotions to be expressed in a healthy way. Of course, as I just mentioned, repression, suppression, oppression, a sense of imprisonment and restriction, those are all things associated with combustion. So you may feel that emotionally you are restricted, and this may come from patterns you learned in your childhood. The moon is also the childhood, is also your behavioral patterns. And the moon combust could very well indicate that in childhood, you learned quickly not to show vulnerability, not to express emotions, to be tough. And you learned that there were many more important things than just, being vulnerable, or, using your instinct, or listening to your inner voice, listening to your intuition. You learned that there were much more present and important matters. And you learned to dismiss the moon qualities and what the moon represents. So there is also the need to give more importance to the moon, learning to give priority to the moon as well, not just to the matters of the sun. And the matter figure as well, the matter figure is ruled by the moon. The moon is the matter figure, but it's also how we were nurtured, protected, and sheltered, and made feel safe, and how we will do the same for our, not only for our children, but for all the people that we meet in our life. Well, first of all, the child will not experience much nurturing. A child with a combust moon, they may not have experienced so much nurturing and the sense of protection and sheltering that a child is supposed to experience. And they may have experienced a childhood which was almost non-existent, especially when it comes to the more nurturing moments. Maybe they weren't taken care of that much. And so there is the need to rediscover the inner child, to connect to that inner child again as an adult when you have the awareness that you missed out on this side of your childhood. This is because, again, the sun is not a friend when it's combusting a planet. It's basically robbing the planet of its life. It feels like your childhood has been robbed away from you, taken away from you, stolen from you. And so that's another thing that I can advise you if you've got the moon combust and you feel that in this area of the moon you've got issues. Again, it's not just to sit down, connect with your instinct and intuition, learning to listen to the intuition, but also trying to recover the inner child, because that part of you you have been stripped of that side of you even before you could learn to enjoy it. So that's very important. And the matter may not have been that present when you were a child, because the matter, the moon, is overruled by something else, maybe by career, maybe by her own family and her own issues, or maybe because, especially if the moon is pretty weak and the sun is quite strong, maybe the father was being a person who made all the rules and all the decisions and all the choices, and he was the person who influenced you the most, even when it came to the nurturing aspects of life, and those aspects were missing. So again, those are all different possibilities depending on what the sun rules in your chart and all the other aspects as well. In the house also we find this conjunction taking place, but on a general rule, the matter has a less prominent role, whether it is that she is overpowered by the father, by your father, by the father of the natives with the combust moon, or because she's got she had more pressing issues to deal with. But still, there is a sense of the matter being absent, especially the more nurturing and softer aspects of the motherhood. And as an adult, a native with a combust moon, I've got a friend of mine. She's got a combust moon and she's a mother. And, they are not the most nurturing people. And their softness on the emotional, cozy side is not there. So she's got Venus in Libra. So she's got this grace that comes from Venus. You see this person, and not only about Venus in Libra, also the placement of Venus can make a person very graceful, very easygoing, easy to talk to, easy to get along with. And you may confuse that with the nurturing aspects of motherhood, but actually these are two very different things. Venus is about your social life or your style of relationships. So a good Venus may have a very healthy style of relating to others, including a son or a daughter. But if the moon is compromised, they may not be that fuzzy and comfy and cozy, So there is a difference. They will be harmonious, they will be patient because, Venus knows how to build relationships. So the relationship with the child may be quite healthy. I'm not denying that, actually, because the way we build relationships is Venus. So if your Venus is in a great status, you will have a great relationship with the child. But if the moon again is compromised, what's lacking? The lacking part would be the lunar side, which is again the coziness, the vulnerability, the pure intuitive, instinctual side of taking care of someone. And they are not the kind of they are not the nurturing people, actually. Again, they may talk, they may build a relationship based on interaction. If Venus is good, but what they lack is the, how shall I say that? What they lack is the more spontaneous, more spontaneous, more kind of gut-like reaction and response. And the child feels that. You see that those people, they'd rather have a child who's already grown up, or that they rather have a child, especially if Venus is good again, they'd rather have a child who's their equal. Their priority is not to take care of the child by providing them, with food. Like they are not, they're not, that's not their favorite, to kind of play the role of the mother. They rather play, again, if Venus is also is in great dignity, they rather play the role of the friend or the advisor, rather than the role of the mother who has to change the baby and cook for the baby and play with them and so on and so forth. So I hope that that makes sense. Having a combust moon does not make you a bad parent. Absolutely not. However, your style is very different from the typical parenting style, and the child will miss out on the more nurturing side of the growing up phase. So that's all about the kind of motherhood. Then what do we have? Well, we have the moon, the fact that the moon is associated with our needs. So oftentimes people with a combust moon have a hard time expressing their needs, voicing their needs, bringing their needs to the attention of others. So I give an example. If someone is smoking in the same room you're in, and you have a combust moon, you may not voice the fact that this is bothering you. You may not ask them, please do go outside to smoke, because this is annoying me. A combust moon may surrender their needs to the needs of someone else. They may not give their needs and their own comfort the proper value and the proper importance. So that's another point to work on, learning to voice your needs and not to give up on them or surrender them or just ignore them for the sake of someone else. Could be your partner. If the sun rules the 7th house, you will be all about your partner, dismissing your own needs and dismissing what makes you comfortable or uncomfortable. If it makes you uncomfortable, you will probably, if something makes you uncomfortable, you will not probably voice it. If the sun rules the 5th house, you'll prioritize your kids, neglecting your own needs. So if the sun rules the 10th house, then you'll neglect your own needs for the sake of your job, for the sake of advancing in your career. If the sun rules the 2nd house, you will sacrifice your needs, because combustion may talk about sacrificing as well, sacrificing your needs and your comfort because of money. If it's the 3rd house, because of siblings. If it's the 4th house, your father and your family in general. If it's the 10th house, it could be the mother. If it's the 11th house, you may be the person who's never saying no to a friend, or always accommodate friends, or always gives money to a friend because they are in need, and so who cares about myself? I'm just gonna give myself money because they need it, and so on and so forth. So other points, well, the moon is the way we interact with our surroundings and our close environment. It's also the way we perceive this kind of environment and those close people around us. So if the moon is combust, you may have difficulties noticing how your surrounding is responding to you. So you may have some issues realizing that, for example, the person who's sitting in front of you is very much embarrassed, because a moon which is combust does not notice how their environment is responding to them. They also have a hard time interacting with the environment itself. So again, you may be portraying a behavior that the person who's sitting in front of you, they don't like it. They are very much uneasy about it, and they are showing it in some ways, but because again, a planet which is combust cannot see, you will not realize that. So you have to make an effort to consciously pay attention to how people are reacting to you, and also to pay close attention to how the environment is responding to you. And another thing is learning to adapt to the environment. Now, the moon is about flexibility and the ability to adapt to the situations that you're faced with. So we have a kind of a paradox here, because we may have someone who neglects their own needs, and they may use this as a coping mechanism that they believe allows them to adapt easily. So there may be this misconception that if you do not voice your needs, if you allow other people to do how it pleases them, then you are someone adaptable. Well, that's actually something that can happen with such a combust moon, and the person needs to learn to make the difference. So if you are neglecting your own needs, so if you're not expressing what makes you tick or not, or what makes you comfortable and what makes you uncomfortable, this is not adapting. So you need to learn to voice your needs, but also you need to learn to read your close environment and to respond to that accordingly. And responding accordingly to your environment also means saying no when something bothers you. But it also means responding correctly to the environment, learning to be flexible, learning to adapt to the environment means that means learning to notice how the environment is responding to you. So if you notice that someone is not feeling comfortable, maybe voicing that, but also, first of all, learning to notice that the other person is feeling uncomfortable. So there is this dichotomy or seeming paradox to work through. So learning to voice your needs, but also learning to read your close environment and learning to take notice of it and to work with it. So learning to respond and changing your responses according to the situation you're faced with. All right, so let's see, what else do we have? Well, I would talk about perception, because the moon is how we perceive reality. And because the sun, well, the moon is very subjective. The moon is the most subjective planet, but the sun is also the ego. And the sun, again, is combusting. So what the sun represents is what shapes your perceptions the most. So if sun is ruling, let's say, the 10th house, the image you present to the public will be what shapes your perceptions the most. So what, in practice, this means that if you are feeling something, or if you want to act upon something, the first filter you go through before putting something into action will be, how does this impact the way others see me, or the way I see myself as well. So also in judging someone, that could be a possibility that when you look at their actions or the behaviors or their personalities, you may look at, if the sun rules the 10th house, so let's keep this example, you may look at how this impacts their public image. Or the public image may be the first parameter that you use when judging someone or something, when maybe making choices as well. You may use that parameter as the main one that shapes your reality. So this is because, again, there is distortion here because of the sun. If the sun rules the 7th house, we may have someone who really gives huge importance to relationships, and they judge and make choices based on, and they perceive reality, their mechanisms of perceiving realities are based on this. So how does this make me feel in the relationship? Or is this something geared toward the relationship? And so on and so forth. It's a little bit of an abstract concept, but it's actually pretty important. It's like the main filter that, or the main lenses, actually, let's say lenses. The sun, if the moon is combust, the sun will represent the lenses through which our perception of reality is shaped. Why? Because the sun combusts the moon. So because the sun takes the spotlight. So this is another important factor to keep in mind. Well, when it comes to health, the moon represents the liquids in the body. It represents all the rhythms of the body. So the circadian rhythms, so the sleeping patterns, eating patterns. Moon is nutrition. So moon is actually all our patterns. And again, it's nutrition, and it's also our cycle. So for women, that's the period. So the menstrual cycle. So again, among combust, woman may have some problems with the cycle. Why? Because her femininity, including the cycle, but also the softer side, the vulnerability, is not allowed to be expressed. So if you've got a combust moon and you realize that your period is not that healthy, or it's not that regular or whatever, this may be coming from the sun who's not allowing the moon to express itself. So again, the sense of restriction and imprisonment, what does it mean? Well, it means that that thing, in this case, I'm saying that the period is not allowed to express, to take place. The nutrition and eating patterns. Well, with the combust moon, there may be the possibility that the eating patterns are not the best, or that you do not keep a close eye on your eating patterns. Especially, you may neglect food. Why? Again, because the sun takes priority. So you may just think that food is what we need to sustain ourselves, and you may put into your system something that will keep you fed, but what's missing is the enjoyment of food, and also the aspects of, like sitting down quietly and having a nice healthy meal, in a sense. So again, the sun takes the spotlight, so you may sacrifice your lunch because you have to work, right? Very simple example, but that's what I mean by sacrificing nutrition. And sleep as well, or you're sleeping. Now, the moon is not necessarily sleeping itself, like the sleep, but the moon is the sleeping patterns and the circadian rhythms. So you may sacrifice sleeping, your sleep hours for something. Again, it could be a job, it could be kids, whatever. So again, be mindful of all those things. Moon is about relaxing, the ability to relax, the ability of getting cozy and fuzzy and warm. And this may not be important for the native with the combust moon, because maybe they believe they have been taught to believe that it's something that weak people do or lazy people do. So you may find it difficult to relax and rest yourself with a combust moon, especially if the sun is in a very active sign, and such as Aries, or if the sun rules an house which is particularly active, such as the 10th or the 1st, for example, or the 9th. So again, be mindful of this. Learn to take proper rest time, and to put it into the calendar, time for relaxation, basically, because otherwise the sun does not allow you to say stop and to develop the archetype, which is combust, unless you do it very consciously and sometimes quite with effort. So you need to do it with a lot of effort, and sometimes a little bit brutally, because the sun is the king, right? So how do you put the king at his place? Well, you can't be that nice, because you have to impress the king. You have to show the king that you are the boss. And so sometimes you have to be forceful when dealing with the sun. So that's something to keep in mind. All right. Other point is the fact that the sun is, especially the process of combustion, is a process of continuous transformation. So you may feel that your emotional life, your inner life, but also your family life, they constantly change, and that your mood is pretty unpredictable, and that you may feel up 1 minute and like 10 minutes later you may feel down. The sun brings a lot of instability, especially if we are talking about mutable signs or signs which change things quickly, such as Aries. Uh, and this is because, as I said in my introductory chat on combustion, things do change pretty intensely when we have a combustion. It's a process of transformation. It's an alchemical process of transmutation, of metamorphosis. So it's not that your life is stable. It's not that your life is not stable, but it's that the sun is forcing you to learn to deal with the transformations. You basically learn to adapt because of all the metamorphoses you go through, all the changes you go through. So there's something to keep in mind when you've got this combust moon, is that the many transformations happen on the emotional side, which is very complicated to deal with sometimes. And you have to create your inner sanctuary, your inner course of stability, because things will change. And also learn to go with the flow, as I said, because you can't do much about the fact that there is a combustion. So the process of transformation, of death and rebirth, always occurs. So again, the lesson of letting go of emotions, letting go of attachments, and learning to make space for something new, because when something no longer serves you, it will be burnt away and let go of. So you have to learn to let go of the attachments, have to learn to let go of ideas and all that the moon rules as an archetype and in your house and in your birth chart, sorry, and learn to let it go, learning to release that, to make space for something new. It's a constant process. that happens. It's a continuous evolution, and that's one of the tasks of combustion. Combustion is here to allow us to get rid of what no longer serves us, but because it's the moon, it can be painful because the moon is naturally soft and vulnerable. So when we have to let go of something related to the moon, it may be painful. The softer side, whether you're a woman or a man, doesn't really matter. We all have the moon, we all have the soft side, but if you have a combust moon, this soft side hasn't been allowed to get out. So if you're a woman, you were taught maybe that it's wrong to show your femininity or your vulnerability, and that you have to be businesslike, and this was ingrained into your psyche as a child. And depending on the sign of the moon, this may be aligned with the moon needs or not. So if you got the moon in Capricorn, for example, as a behavioral pattern, this comes naturally to you, and also it's more painful at the same time because the moon in Capricorn is in detriment, which means that you have to basically learn the qualities of the moon, because for you it's also different. So you have to find the middle ground. And if your moon is in a sign that naturally is feminine, such as Cancer, such as Pisces or Taurus, in that instance, you basically have to do a lot of, basically you have been forced to go against your nature. And so you have to reclaim your own nature back, and to allow your softer side to come out. And for men, usually this could happen like kind of the reverse. I mean, it's not the reverse, it's actually the same, but like the man may not be allowed to express their own emotions as a child, and then this becomes complicated in later years when they have to deal with their reactions and responses, but they don't know how to do it, or they don't know how to let those responses out, or how to let people into their inner world, or they don't know. And also for women, that's also the same, that they don't know how to let those responses out, and they don't know how to make space for people to get in touch with those responses of them, so that they can create a relationship, an interaction based on emotional responses. Now, last but not least, the vulnerability of the moon combust. As I said in my previous chat, a planet who is combust always is vulnerable. Here we've got a cold and moist planet in contact with a hot and dry planet. So basically, the sun removes from the moon her softness again. So those people with the combust moon may have been taught and brought up with the idea of being tough, or being always put together, being mature, always mature. And what happens with the moon is that there is a difference whether we are on the balsamic phase of the moon or new moon. So if the moon is before the sun, say the sun is at 8 and the moon is at 4, this is the balsamic moon. It's the last stage of the moon cycle. We are closing the cycle. So if you are born in this phase, in addition to what I've said, you may also experience, first of all, a sense of anxiety and some kind of sense of dread, or a sense of urgency that you have to do this and that, because you have so many things to do and not enough time. This is because, again, the moon is at the end of the cycle, so the moon feels the pressure to finish it all, to finish everything, because after that there is definite purification for fire. and rebirth. So there is this sense of, I have to do this, I have to do that. Oh my God, I have so many things to do. I have so many things to accomplish. I want to experience so many things, because you have the sensation in the back of your mind that there isn't enough time, or that at one point you have to let go of something, because that's the Balsamic moon task. Her task is to allow the native to let go of what no longer serves you, or to let go of what has run its course. So that's something you have to deal with. But it's also a moon that has inbuilt wisdom. So it's a moon which is more mature. It's a moon who has experienced a lot. It's a moon that sometimes may not fit in with people around her age. So this is because, again, it's a moon which has more experience, more sensitive, and it also needs a more isolation and time on their own. I mean, a moon which is combust, as a general rule, needs some time to decompress, because the sun overwhelms the moon, so you may feel emotionally overwhelmed easily, especially if your moon is in an intense sign such as Aries, Leo, Scorpio, Pisces, Cancer. But in general, my advice is for those who have the combust moon to allow time to decompress, because again, this moon may be emotionally overwhelmed easily, and the sense of exhaustion may be ever present. Especially the Balsamic moon may be exhausted easily, because again, that's the last stage of the moon. It's like an older person. An older person, first of all, they need more time on their own, and also they get tired more quickly and easier compared to young people, right? They have less energy. That's normal. So you need more time to recharge. You may appear a little bit more less, you may appear a little bit less energetic to others. I don't want to say apathic, because that's not true, but yes, on the outside to others, they may use this word, that they say that you may appear a little bit apathic, that you do not react, or that you're not so bubbling with energy and enthusiasm. Well, because that's the Balsamic moon. Generally, older people, they take their time, and they have their own experience, and they know how to manage their energy, but they also have less energy, right? So this is important to consider. The new moon instead, so that's the kind of vulnerability. That's the vulnerability of an older person. So you have to take care of taking time on your own, to not exhaust yourself or get yourself burn out by tiring too much, because you do get tired more easily than others. The moon is after the sun. So let's say sun at 14, moon at 19. That's new moon. When does the new moon occur precisely? The new moon occurs precisely when moon and sun are cazimi. Actually, it occurs when moon and sun are exactly on the same degree, on the same minute. So let's say they are both at 14:27. This is when the new moon occurs. Then the moon is much faster than the sun. So the moon goes through the cazimi phase, and then she moves away, and we got the new moon. Of course, both Balsamic and new moon are dark phases. You cannot see the moon in the sky. So that's why I said before that you can't see your emotions. You can't see your moon, and other people, they can't see the moon either. But the new moon is different because it has the vulnerability of a newborn baby. So if the Balsamic moon has the vulnerability of an old person, the new moon has the vulnerability of a newborn child. So very innocent, very inexperienced, and a little bit immature. They may rush into things and put a lot of enthusiasm, and then they get hurt easily as well. They get deceived easily because they have this innocent idealism of the kids, and their expectations may be deceived quite quickly because of this. They don't have inbuilt proper sense of they don't have inbuilt proper mechanism defenses, and so they have to learn to set proper boundaries and to say no, because a child, you have to tell the child, don't trust people you don't know, don't accept things from people you don't know, don't go away with people you don't know, stay close to your mother, don't get lost, right? All those things that a new moon needs to be reminded of. So not put in too much energy into things, for example, not to rush into things because you may get hurt, not to trust too easily because again, you may get hurt. So you have to find a balance, not to become paranoid, but also not to be so trustworthy so easily because then you'll get hurt and many people will deceive you. And there is a need to develop, there is a need to mature, there is a need to make experience. But on the other hand, because everything comes with good and the challenges, always everything has the good sides and everything has got the challenges. And the good side of the new moon is that they're full of enthusiasm. So the fact that they have to learn is not that much of a problem because they are full of energy and enthusiasm. And one of their missions here is to bring in new things, they are new blood in a sense. They bring this breath of fresh air into things and they start new things. They have this need to bring in and renovate things, right? But very important is that they need to learn to understand that other people may be more complex than them. And it's not a degrading comment, but a new moon is pretty simple in a sense because it's just a baby. You know, you have to think that in terms of development, that's baby moon. And what are the needs of the baby? Well, they are basic needs, and also especially if the moon is of the earliest signs, so such as Taurus, Aries, they may have difficulties understanding the complexities and intricacies of such, let's say, a moon in Scorpio, or the intricacies of a moon which is in aspect with Neptune or Mars. So what a new moon needs to remind itself, natives of the new moon need to remind themselves that their own way to see reality in a very simple way. And I'm not saying that it's negative, it's actually for them a good thing because they don't become paranoid and they don't twist their mental health that much by getting entangled into emotional nets. However, they need to remind themselves that the way that for them things are so simple, for other people they may be more complex. So they may get pretty fed up or exhausted when they have to deal with people who are so emotionally complex. For them, it's like, why do you have to be so complex? Like, just do it, or just, you know, what's the matter? Just do it. And other people may have, but I, no, I don't feel like it, or blah blah blah, and they're like, but who cares about it? Just do it. And so they have to kind of remind themselves that, yeah, for them it's normal to react in this kind of quote unquote simple, uncomplicated, that's probably a better word, uncomplicated way. But for others, it's not so. So I think it's all from me about the combust moon. I hope this was helpful. I hope that it gave you some insights on how to work with this on your birth chart. Again, if you want to do energetic practices to develop your moon, to get in touch with your moon, you may use water because the moon is water to get in touch with the moon. But if you are going through something about learning to let go and detach, but also if you want to expand, so moon water will help you to get in touch with the instincts, with the creativity, with the intuition. But fire will help you, rituals with water, as I said, will help you with the intuition, with the creativity, with relaxing, with the concept, you know, of relaxation, which is associated with the moon, and nurturing and taking care. And whereas rituals which include fire will help you, well, fire is associated with, of course, burning. So it will help you going through the more painful transformations and metamorphoses of the combustion process. Combustion, it's actually something that it's actually what happens when we set fire to something, it combusts. And also fire will help you to expand, because fire expands, fire gives life and light and vitality. So it depends on what you want to do. And those are the two elements that you may work with depending on what you need. All right, so if you want to get in touch with me, go on guideastrology.com. And if you have some other planets combust, well, I will meet you in the next chats where I'll talk about other combust planets. We'll talk about Mercury next. All right, take care. Bye-bye.